I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Sioux Falls City Council Fiscal Committee for Tuesday, October 2nd. Welcome to everybody here at Carnegie Town Hall and to all those that may be watching on Channel 16. We welcome you, and it's kind of a short agenda for tonight. Before we go to that, though, I would like an approval of the minutes from our meeting of Tuesday, September 2nd.
Move approval, Aguilar.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Right now, we're going to go into our, go to the right side here. Our agenda, which involves basically a long-term process that Councillor Jameson and I have been involved in. Several months ago, we were asked by this committee to look at what advantages we may have with a CIP budget review committee and where we can go with that. The process has been an evolution, and I think mostly, especially for me, a learning process. And by that I mean the involvement of our community at so many different levels and so many different organizations and institutions on how our budget is put together. And based on that, we've kind of evolved into maybe, we don't want to add another bureaucratic level, I think is what our resolve was, that to the budget process, but make it a more of an open process where we do get public input and look for or add to the process through the public. Councillor Jameson, you want to add anything to my stumbling around?
Sure, I'll help you out. You know, in the beginning, we talked, and this committee actually recommended that Dean and I continue working through the process of the CIP review committee. And I think what we found is that certainly the administration tries to include the Chamber's opinions, the Home Builders Association's opinions, the internal, the IRAB board opinions, all these other organizations who, Development Foundation, Forward Sioux Falls, all these groups who participate in our city is like we do, in long-term planning and strategies. How could we get them involved in the budget? Because they have visions, and if we can all bring that together, I think that would be a great thing. And what we found out, though, working through the administration, was that it was a cumbersome process. It had been done in the past, but it's a cumbersome process to get all those individuals available to meet at a certain time. And, you know, do you do that before the budget is put together? Do you do it after the budget is put together? Needless to say, it was running into a stone wall on even trying it, because it was just big of a task. And so Dean and I kind of figured that, well, we've got to find another approach here, because this isn't working. And through Tracy Turbeck and some of the others at the administration, this other conversation about, you know, what is it at the end of the day that we want? And what we wanted really was to communicate to them what we think the budget should include prior to the budget actually being printed. You know how it is, we get the budget and it's handed to us in a book and says, here's the budget. The council does pass every year a resolution outlining its objectives for the year. But we often fail at that because they're pretty general, overstating comments about what we should do with the budget, you know. So the intent was, how do we inform the administration, how does the council inform the administration of what should be included in the budget, what we think is important for the long-term visions, and in turn help the administration develop a budget that is reflective of what we want. Anyway, so it kind of like Councillor Karski has said, it evolved into the conversation of, well, what if we have a chance for the public? And they could be the chamber members, they could be Development Foundation members, they could be anybody from the public, come into this room here, take a look at all the things that we're going to do in 2013, which is going to be an exciting year for sure, but start talking about what should we be doing for 2014, 15, 16, 17, and have a chance for the public to actually sit and say, far ahead of the process that we've never done before, but far ahead of the process, tell us what they think we should do. And then let us absorb that, let the council absorb those ideas and thoughts and visions, and then in the end of the day, the council summarizes it down into a short list of what each of us want individually and work it out through the budget. But the goal and the purpose, if I could, is to have this open house shortly in an effort to get ahead of the whole cycle for the administration, because they're working and planning already for 14, which is odd, you know, that 12 hasn't even expired and 13 is already in the books, but they're already starting. And so it's only a good idea that we get ahead of it and involved in it. And some of our hopes and vision is that we would actually collaborate on developing the budget more than we've ever done in the past. And maybe communicate better was also one of the things we wanted to accomplish. You know, we do the resolution every year, and I think we even forget some years to do it, to actually give the administration our priorities and objectives that we want to have done. And this process, I believe, is our hopes, is to do something we haven't done before that we can remember, and do it in an effort to engage the public more than ever before. Does that help?
Thank you very much for helping with that, Greg. We had many meetings, many hours of meetings, and as well as did Jim David, our legislative and operations manager, and David Bixler, our budget analyst. It was more of a brainstorming sessions, and this is how we put this together. So we're bringing this right now for consideration to this committee to decide if we do want to take this to the full council. I would like to bring forward now Jim David. We asked him to kind of do a polling and do some preliminary work on contacting some of the administration.
Sure. Jim David, City Council Office. Before you have a 2003 resolution that the council at that time had identified their priorities for the short, medium, and long terms. And we had looked at that process following a meeting with the administration. And we decided maybe to move in that direction. And actually, before the council would approve that resolution, there would actually be an open house. It'd be an open house similar to those used for transportation committee meetings, where individuals providing input wouldn't necessarily come to a podium or be on camera. They would actually go and look at the various departments. For example, the Public Works might have a transportation improvement plan for the next 5 years, and they'd have a map up there. Public Works might also have some of their improvements over the long term. Parks could have their master plan for what they plan to do on the west side of Sioux Falls or in downtown Sioux Falls, maybe the River Greenway schematic design. Anything to try to jazz individuals that are attending those meetings, their ideas, and try to actually gather those ideas. From there, the process would have those individuals or the public, members of the public, submit comment cards for their ideas. Staff would receive those, put them on an email, send them out to council. That would be followed up with a survey, and then asking for the council's priorities for the short, medium, and long term, and gather those in a document. And at a working session, the council would actually work through those, identify which ones they want to have as their priorities, and also decide should it be in the short, medium, or long-term goals of the council. And then that would be compiled in a resolution for the council's final decision, and that would be passed on to the administration to guide them. And as I think during this process, this would be a living document. Each year the council would review it, make updates, changes, things of that nature, and then pass that on again to the administration. So this is some of the ideas that we had all worked on.
And if I could add to that, Jim, too, the scope of this open house would be twofold. It would be, one, to give councilors the opportunity to receive input either directly from constituents, and two, to work together as a council so that we can bring our common ideas, our business plan, our strategic vision, I guess, if you will. And in front of you, that resolution, that was from 2003. And if you look at that, you know, just under their long term, you know, they discussed the river ramp in 2003, saying in 2012 the river ramp will be 50 years old and approaching the end of its life. I mean, this is the type of thing that we need to be looking at. The last paragraph of that resolution, I think, is extremely important in following up with what Jim David said. This resolution should be construed as a statement of goals, objectives, and priorities for the future governance of the City of Sioux Falls. It is adopted by the Council for the purpose of providing a guideline for this and future councils. It is also adopted to provide guidance for the City's annual capital program process. Finally, this resolution should not be construed as a firm or binding commitment to any particular course of action or expenditure of city funds. My idea, and I think Councilor Jameson shares this, we just need to have a vision for our city, and unless we put it in the form of a resolution, how are we going to know what that vision is? That, and by having an open house, we do get input. We can show our public what we have done with the money, what we're going to be doing in 2013, what we've done in 2012, what we're going to be doing, you know, what should we be looking at in 2014. As hard as all these people work, something can be missed. And it just gives us the chance to hear that input from the people. That being said, Councilor Enneman.
Looking at the one that we had from 03, I like the way they put it together by Councilor Jameson by expressing it like short-term, medium-term, and long-term. I don't like the thought of putting a time on things because time is, for a city, depending upon what's going on, the growth, the infrastructure needs and all of that stuff, we can't even begin to assume what we're going to need in 25 to 50 years from now. But there are, you know, a wish list of things and how we all like to look at the way we believe the city should move. So I like the process. I do like the thought of boarding, like you said, having an open house where people can come in and talk a little bit. They can see what some of the 5-year plans are for the respective departments, and at the same time, you know, maybe give their suggestion, and we could be there to help field that as well as staff. I really don't have a problem. I think it's a good exercise.
Based on that then, Jim, can you let us know what input you had back from the administration?
The administration actually had come up with the 2003 resolution. I should give credit to the administration for submitting that to begin with. So this was just gathering input. They are open to an October 18th open house to be held at the chambers from 5 to 7 o'clock. So they have been supportive.
Councilor Aguilar.
I hate to be the naysayer in this group. I think that the process would be a good process, but I think it's hurry up and get it done right now. I think that this is something that would take more time than starting this in October and expecting a resolution in November. If you take note of this resolution, you'll see that pursuant to Section 223 of the City Code of Ordinances, Mayor Dave Munson will not be signing this resolution. The mayor did not sign it, meaning that it went into effect, but not with his signature on it. I think that we need to have, looking at the timeline that's been set forward, that we're going to go ahead and have this done in October with a resolution in November. We're not putting the time into the process itself as far as what we as counselors need to know in order to put those priorities in place. I think that the idea itself is a fine idea, but I think that there's more to it than having one open house and then surveying the council to find out, you know, let's put our 1 through 10 on a piece of paper. I think that we need to have more than one meeting with the public. I think that you need to have a variety of meetings at different times so that if you truly do want input from citizens, that you have availability there. I think over the long haul, this would be a great process, but I don't see it being effective if we hurry up and get it done. It needs the process itself needs to be refined, and we as a council need to go forward and do our own homework and also give those opportunities to the citizens to contact us. And it doesn't have to just be through an open house. We can find different ways for them to contact us also. And maybe it doesn't mean, maybe we do have asked the directors to put on a event where they are looking at their 5-year projects. I thought that we kind of just did that as we went through the budget process. Of course, with the CIP, we center on that first year, but those 5 years are spelled out there. And some of the questions from the council do surround that total 5 years. So it's something that I'd like to have us further develop. And I like the idea in talking to staff as far as having more research on our part, working with the departments, along with the way that we usually have the tours with Public Works. You know, we could do some of that with each of the departments. Having that kind of information would be very beneficial from the standpoint of listening to the citizens and then knowing as council members actually what is happening.
Other comments?
Sue, you fun wrecker.
It's my job.
Okay, well, no, I you know, a couple things if I could. The November 20th date, I believe, was really an effort to get ahead of the administration's budget development of their own. Maybe then, Sue, the approach is just to get it as soon as we can, and don't get hung up on November 20th. And even though they might get started down the path, but we just do all those things you just talked about, and do this 2 months, 3 months from now.
Yeah, I don't, you know, I really do see it as a process that we need to do it and do it right from the very beginning so that there is credibility to the process itself. And I think that, you know, here we are as a committee, but this is something that we have to have the buy-in of the entire council. And I am concerned about not doing it in a fashion that is quick just because we want to get it off the ground. We've waited this long, let's do it right, and let's get that input. But also, I see the council has homework to do in order to really make this work. We have to be knowledgeable, not just listening to the public, but also be knowledgeable to be able to answer their questions. And that does take some of the tours and meetings with the different departments and the like. We've done it, you know, as new counselors, as candidates. We need to continue that process, and it has to be part of the job itself.
If I could, Sue, do you think October, what was the date, October 18th is too soon to start that process with an open house?
Well, I think that it could be because of the fact that here we are in committee today, and we're not going to hear, I mean, there are council members that aren't in the chambers right now that aren't aware of the total process. You know, you did, you know, say that we were going to be discussing something, but until I saw the agenda itself with some additional notes, I wasn't aware that this was the path that you were looking at taking. And as I said before, that's where I do have some concerns.
Councilor Rolfing.
Might I address
Please.
that issue of being the only other counselor in the room? I tend to agree with Councilor Aguilar on this. I think this process that you guys have come up with is could be really, really good, and I think it's something that the Operations Committee needs to put into the operations book, because I would see this process being redone, if you will, on a every 2 year, 3 year, 4 year basis to make it the impact of it felt again, rather than as it happened here in 2003. We have something good that came out of there, and now we're almost a decade later, and it's never happened again. And to have it be part of the operation where we're going to bring people in, our constituents, the people of Sioux Falls, and ask them again what their feelings are every 3 years, for instance, and I don't know if that's the right date, but let's just say it is, right timeline, every 3 years, and run the same process again and say, okay, what are your feelings about this? What are your feelings about this? What are your feelings about this? And but I think Councilor Aguilar has a good idea in that your group or a subcommittee or whatever you want to do needs to sit down and come up with what this needs to accomplish, what the timeline is, how many meetings you need to do. Something we found on the task force that we had with the urban ag is that, we were set up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and somebody said, you're kind of putting out some people that can't get there at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You need to do some in the evening. And some you need to do at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So, you need to be different times when people can get there and different things like that. I would kind of see at least 3, maybe 5 different meetings, and maybe you divide it up between the different counselors, where at least 3 counselors are there at each one, that kind of thing, whatever. But yeah, a little more planning needs to go into this before it comes to fruition and comes back to this committee even maybe, and then on to the council. But I see some really good things coming out of it. Yeah.
And kind of to address Director Cooper, yeah, please. We're looking for input, so it's hard to plan when it's just 2 of us, and we got to impact so many people. So we're looking for input.
Mike Cooper, Planning and Building Services. What I wanted to offer today is that our part of this process, whichever direction you end up going or timeline, is that in addition to the bus tours, I think, which are very, very helpful and educational, is that one of the things that we can maybe do a better job than we've done in the past is giving you a better idea of what's anticipated in terms of both public and private development around the city, and how that's going to impact public works and parks and libraries and those kind of things. And I know that what we've done in the past, as we've gone out and spoken to different service clubs or groups, is we've actually divided the city up into the council districts. And we could do that for these open houses or other information that would go to the public. And we could list what's anticipated in terms of major capital projects and major private development, whether it's going to be residential or commercial. And again, I think that's kind of a good way to help educate people, short-term, medium-term, long-term things that are anticipated to happen that could affect what your ultimate priorities would be for funding. And this would be primarily for the capital portion of the budget as opposed to the operations.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Enman.
Mike, in that plan you have there, does that address parks, libraries, the whole gamut of the city services that we provide?
Yeah, this is really more of a 5-year summary of all the major capital projects, in addition to the major private developments that we're aware of.
Really, I guess the 2 years I've been here, I guess I haven't seen that. I haven't been at any of those meetings.
You have to join a service club. And
yeah, well, there's only so much time to go around.
Yes.
So
I'm just offering that today, that we would be more than happy to work with the other departments and put something like that together.
That kind of a presentation is something I think that's essential before you do take, where we gain the knowledge as to what Councilwoman Aguilar said, that we have that knowledge before we take it out and we go to the public, because our knowledge of what is planned on the part of the city from development, I think, is key in how we set our what it is that we'd like to see and how we'd like to see and what our constituents like to see. I think that's key information to know. So right there, would you suggest that be brought to us by each individual department, or would you say that we set aside some hour at some meeting, or maybe not necessarily an informational meeting, where you guys make a presentation like that and you just inform us? How would you suggest we do that?
I think it could be a team presentation, and then whether you want to do it at an informational or a work session, whatever, or a committee meeting, whatever you prefer. We could put something like that together fairly soon.
At an informational, at least it'd be presented to the entire council. At a committee meeting, you'd only have typically 4 to maybe 5, sometimes 8 of the counselors here, I guess,
Are
depending
your
on the
informational calendars pretty booked up for the next month or so? But I guess that's your,
They are, but I can sure take a look and see what would be available and let you know tomorrow.
Probably have to
I know.
share that with Councilor Erpenbach.
Sure.
Okay. Well, I guess then if I could maybe summarize, Councilor Jameson and I, along with our staff, kind of wanted to come to this committee with an idea, and wanted to see if we could get buy-in, and to some extent we do have buy-in, maybe not at the pace that we were imagining. So at this point, we're going to be looking at going the direction of Mr. Cooper saying, and maybe gathering more information on a public forum for the council. But I'm still a little bit, if I get some feedback from the rest of the committee on what about the public input? Do we have any idea on how we want to address that?
Well,
Councilor?
what I'd like to have more than one meeting with the public. I think that we could either do it in districts, or we could do it at, here at Carnegie. I think that after we've seen the presentation from the directors, that may be what we could be the premise of that open house or whatever. But again, the public will have a variety of ways if that presentation is at an informational, because it will be online, it will be on CityLink. And so the more people that we can touch with the information, the better we'll be. And actually, if we're really looking for input from them, the more times that they can have the information before them, then they can come to us with their concerns, their ideas, what they want to see. To come to a meeting and, within a limited time period, and then for them to be able to share with us, that can be very difficult if they're not able to have some background information before coming into it also.
And to Councilor Rolfing's point, when we discussed having an open house, we were talking about a 2-hour, 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock time frame, so that, and very informally, not in a meeting sense like this, but truly with different tables, different presentations, or I guess information from the different departments, from planning and public works and libraries and fire departments, and just all the different areas that we touch in our community. So informational, basically, back to the community more than informational back to the council. So right now, is it the wish of this committee then that we have this presentation, and then at that point we decide next month if we want, if or how we want to proceed with the balance of this? Councilor Enneman.
Yeah, if you follow Sue's train of thought the way I'm following it, and this maybe is a process that we're not going to get done by the first of the year, and it may not necessarily be tied to the 2014 budget, but I think if we go forward with the work that is suggested, if we listen to this possibly after a presentation of an hour presentation that we have here, there's going to be a lot of questions and stuff that are going to develop on the part of us. At least I would think that there would be on my part. Then maybe we follow through with a working session ourselves. It's about educating ourselves as well, so that we are informed before we take it to the public to gather additional information. So maybe following the presentation that we have by staff, then you have an opportunity to digest it. We set a working session where we could have the same staff come, where we can have some dialogue and ask the questions and answer more questions if we have those, okay? And then at that point in time, we can possibly take a look at it, and then you set the format. How many public hearings should we have? At what time? When should they be done? With the idea of putting this together within, and it sounds like this is something that's going to take us a while, because we're not going to get this done by the first of the year. no matter how bad we might want to get it done with everybody's schedules and everything coming up with the holiday season, to talk, assuming, you know, that we look at the model that you're suggesting, Councilor Aguilar, I'm assuming this is going to stretch into the first quarter of next year. And then we still come up with a suggestion, Councilor Jameson, for the mayor and for the administration, and see what happens. And with the best input that we've had, by listening to our constituents, with the dreams that we have, being able to draw up a document like this, that probably makes a little bit more sense.
Councilor?
Mr. Chair? Oh.
Councilor Aguilar.
Well, and also I think that even just beginning this process and getting more input from the remainder of the council, I believe that we'll have better budget hearings in 2013 because we will be more informed and our constituents will also be more informed and be able to ask us the questions that need to be asked of us as to why we're supporting or not supporting. You know, I see this as evolving. That's why I really do feel that the process that you're suggesting and putting together the priorities is an excellent one. However, I just am concerned about the timing.
And I think you hit the nail right on the head, and it is about the evolution. And as we're all aware, seldom does government move at the speed of light. So it will take time, but it is a process. And like you said, the whole process of our constituents and us understanding and knowing what is going into that next budget is the whole ultimate goal. So, Councilor Jameson, anything to add?
Well, I suppose I could add a few things. I didn't understand in the beginning that educating the council was going to be a part of the challenge. The whole intent was to gather input from the public. That was the whole intention, and it's not just the citizens. It's the Chamber of Commerce, the Development Foundations, Forward Sioux Falls, it's the CVB, it's anybody who's involved in the planning and development of our city could participate. You know, and I'll evolve with this as you guys want, for sure. I just didn't have that piece into my brain when I was trying to figure all this out, that we needed to first educate the council on what the budget is that we just passed. So I'm taken back, and you know, and Councilor Karski and I have spent a lot of time, and so has staff. But you know, perhaps it's better for somebody else to carry this ball the rest of the way, because I'm getting a little wore out on going around and round on it. Somebody else could lay out the framework for it, because I'm just a little sidestepped here on the fact that we're educating the council first, when I think we have that. We just passed the budget. If we don't understand it or have a vision for what it entails, maybe I need to step back on what I should accept as the budget, because I think I have it. My intention is to gather from the public what they think should be going forward. So, I mean, I don't want to be a fun wrecker either, but you know, this whole thing started off with a different premise of getting information from others in our community. And now it's evolved into, well, let's first educate ourselves on what the budget is that we just passed. Just takes me back.
Mr. Chair?
Councilor.
I don't look at it that we're re-educating ourselves on the budget that we just passed. What I'm looking at is we look at that the next year in the CIP. One of the problems that we have come up against is looking to those other 4 years, and when there's a change by the administration, there have been questions and concerns. I think that the council educating itself continually is an important part of being a city council member. And the public input is the most important part of what we're talking about doing. But, you know, the chamber, the IRAB board, they are already being able to give their input. according to what you have reported back to us, the two of you in your conversations. We're looking to expand that. And that's why I believe that doing this in a fashion that will give us the best information and give the public the best information as far as questions that they may have. I don't know how you envision something if you don't have some of the background in it. And, you know, part of what we were also looking at was when those additional funds were still available, a better way for us to look at those CIP dollars and what should be accomplished to the betterment of the community with those dollars. And so I see a process that encompasses all of that to be really very helpful. When I looked at this resolution that they passed in 2003, for one thing, I saw that many of those things on that were already in the CIP. All that I'm guessing that they were highlighting are those areas of the CIP that they wanted to bring, you know, forward to let the administration know that, yes, we still feel that this is important. And again, I would love to have a conversation with Mayor Munson to find out why he wasn't going to sign it. I mean, the charter is quite clear that the development of the budget is the responsibility of the administration, and the passing of the budget is our responsibility. And that's why I say again that the more knowledge this council has, the better we'll be able to serve the people of this community.
Interesting discussion. Thank you, everybody. I'm a little taken aback myself, like as is Councilor Jameson, in that, you know, like I said, we wanted to formulate a plan, and the plan did evolve around, you know, the excess funds from the prior years. What are we going to do with them? That's kind of what it boiled down to, and kind of to prevent the bickering, I guess, between ourselves and maybe the administration on how this money should be spent. But it went way beyond that, and I guess right now it's up to us to probably move in the direction that we had talked about with Mr. Cooper. Kind of backing up a second. Greg and I were able to learn a lot about the budget process simply in the conversations that many of you weren't party to, just because you didn't sit in with the meetings with the directors and find out where all this input came from. So we probably feel ourselves that our, you know, that education process is maybe further ahead than where it is for some of you. And we don't want to leave anybody out or behind on that. I wish it would move faster, but I see it moving slower. And with the permission of this committee, I would entertain a motion that we take the input from the directors as was discussed, and if we decide then at next month's fiscal committee meeting to include it as an agenda item, and we want to, or we have a different direction we want to go, that we do that. So I don't know if I need a vote or a motion on that, or if we want to adjourn on that note.
Question?
Councilor Enman.
Are you suggesting then that we try to find a time to bring it forward to an informational meeting where we can focus on a presentation by the respective departments as discussed and as presented by Mr. Cooper here, to bring that to the informational, or did you want it to come back to committee?
I'm suggesting that we start with the directors and then bring it back to the committee, yes.
Okay.
I'm getting conflict. You know, we've got 4 people here and we've got 2 people that feel strongly each way, so I'm trying to figure out where we want to go as a committee, and I'm looking for a little bit of assistance here.
I would like to see the presentation that Mr. Cooper had pointed out that they take out there. How much time it takes, it'll be up to the chair, probably Councilor Erpenbach, but I would like to see that. And go from there. So I'll make a motion that we bring it forward to an informational meeting, that we would like to see a presentation.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for basically administration to give at an informational meeting the budget process, what we're historically, where we've been, where we're going, and the process, and then to bring it back to our committee meeting in the future. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Any other open discussion items for our fiscal committee? Hearing none, I call this meeting adjourned.